Welcome to All Gems, No Crumbs. I'm Ikenisha, the AI business queen, and I help entrepreneurs turn strategy into systems, systems into sales, and effort into revenue. Inside this podcast, I'm breaking down the frameworks, automations, and decision-making strategies I actually use to grow my business, sell consistently, and build leverage without hustling or overcomplicating anything. If you're ready to build with intention and execute at a higher level, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. So today we are going to be talking all about content. And I want to tell you one reason most business owners burn out with content. They tend to believe that they need new ideas constantly, like a new post, new topic, new angle every single day. And that belief will drain your brain faster than almost anything else in business. Believe me, I have been there. But the way I approach content now is completely different. When I come up with a strong idea, I'm not thinking about, okay, what should I post today or what should I post the next 2 days or whatever. I'm thinking about how far can this idea go? So something that I've already come up with, I'm trying to figure out how far can it go? Like if I have an idea that is really strong, it should travel, like it should be seen and it should show up across my entire business. And once you rather understand that, your content becomes a lot easier and a lot more strategic. So not every idea deserves to be multiplied. Okay. I don't want you to think that every single idea you have needs to be repurposed. And that's what that's called. That's called repurposing, by the way. Some ideas are just posts and that's it. But the ideas I have, or rather the ideas I expand on, I'll say, they have two characteristics. Like one, they address a common problem. They make people think differently. That's what gives my ideas weight. So for example, one of the ideas I recently taught was most business owners think they have a sales problem, but they actually have a content structure problem. And the idea works because it challenged how people are currently thinking while speaking directly to a frustration they already feel. And so when an idea already has both, I know it can go further. So the first mistake that people make when they are doing this and thinking about repurposing is they think that multiplying content means copying the same post everywhere. So they'll make a post and they'll have the same caption, same wording, same format on every single platform. That's not strategy. That's just duplication. That's not repurposing. And duplication doesn't work because every platform communicates differently. For example, Pinterest is search-based. Instagram is visual and fast. Email is conversational. Facebook is community-driven. The idea is going to stay the same, but the structure and the tone has to change. So once I decide an idea is strong enough, I don't copy it, I translate it. And translation means asking, okay, how would this idea show up here on whatever platform I'm thinking about putting on, or for repurposing. So for example, the idea that I had again was that I was teaching on, I can't remember if I started, I think it was a podcast episode first, or was it a live? I can't remember. Anywho, no, it's a podcast. Okay, I remember now. Sorry. Okay, so it was most businesses don't have a sales problem. They have a content structure problem. Now, this is how I made it travel. It was a podcast episode first. I want to say it was the one before this one. It might have been two before this one. So the podcast became the explanation. This is where I broke down the thinking. I explained the problem. I taught the strategy. The podcast was the full conversation, right? Then I did a Facebook Live inside my Facebook group. And that same idea was also a framework. And that was called the BETS Sales Content Framework, BETS. And so I taught that inside the live because it threaded from that original idea from the podcast episode. And BETS stood for belief, education, trust, and sale. So that live took the idea and it turned it into a system that people can now use. Then, of course, I had to put it on Pinterest. So on Pinterest, the pins were like, The real reason your content isn't converting into sales. That was the pin. Now it meets someone who is actively searching for an answer of why their content isn't converting. Now my pin will pop up in the search. On Instagram, I have not posted it yet. As you all know, I'm trying to figure out my Instagram strategy, how I'm going to do it, but I'm still creating content so that way whenever the time comes, I can have the content, schedule it, and be ahead of the game. So on Instagram, it's going to be a carousel, and it's going to say you don't have a sales problem, you have a content structure problem. Posting products over and over again isn't a strategy. So that's going to be part of the carousel. Now the idea becomes visual and direct in the carousel. Of course, I'm going to explain more throughout the carousel slides. In my email, it becomes more conversational. So it could be something like, what did I put? Most people start their week asking what they should post. But if your week starts with content instead of a plan for revenue, your strategy is already off track. So now the idea becomes reflective. I'm talking to you. If you're reading the email, not you, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm talking to you and I'm making you become reflective of this issue. So one idea now became a podcast episode, a Facebook Live, Pinterest content, Instagram content, and an email. That's 5 pieces of content from one idea. And that's the shift that most people are missing. Now, this is where, of course, my best friend, ChatGPT, becomes extremely powerful for me because I don't use it to write the content for me. I use it to help me think. Like, I already know what I want, but I need a talking partner, a thinking partner, a strategic partner. So once I have the idea, I will start a conversation. So I might say something like, I have this idea. Most businesses don't have a sales problem. They have some type of content problem. Help me identify how this could show up across different platforms and help me expand on this idea. So like, I know what I want, but I need help pulling it out of me. So now it will start expanding the idea, and then I will give it feedback and refine what it gives me. So I can say, okay, give me, like we did the podcast episode first, and I'm like, okay, give me 5 Pinterest angles someone would search for based off of this podcast episode. Then I can also say, turn this into 3 strong Instagram hooks using my frameworks. Help me write an email opening that makes someone reflect. And here's the part most people skip. Again, if it's not right the first time when I get it, I don't accept it. I don't accept the very first answer that ChatGPT gives me. And even though I have trained it very, very well, it still makes mistakes because, again, it's still AI. It's not perfect. And people think that AI is perfect when it's not. I push back. I will let it know that's too generic. Make it sharper. This doesn't sound strong enough. Fix the hook. Now it becomes a conversation between me and my thinking partner, me and my strategic partner, me and my assistant or whatever. And that's where the best ideas come from. You use it to brainstorm. You use it to go back and forth. You ping pong. You don't just accept the first thing that it gives you and you don't know how to talk to it, or you just get frustrated and you stop. Just talk. It doesn't matter how you're speaking to it when it comes to brainstorming. Okay. But when it comes to the original prompt, the first thing you're doing, yes, that matters. Okay. So let me give you an example so you can see how this works if you sell a product or you run a local business. So let's say you own a candle brand and your idea might be cheap candles lose their scent fast. Most people would turn that into just one post and that's where it would end. But you can expand on that. You could go into ChatGPT and say, it should already know that you run a candle business, but if it doesn't, just say I run a candle business. I want to build content around the idea that cheap candles lose their scent quickly. Help me turn this into different content angles and tell it what platforms you use. Now the idea can become multiple things. Pinterest could be why your candle stops smelling after 30 minutes. Instagram could be a reel, and it could say, ever bought a candle that smelled amazing in the store but disappeared after you lit it? And you can show like a candle in the reel. And email could be, have you ever lit a candle and wonder why the scent disappears so quickly? Same idea, different entry points. You know what I'm saying? And you just expand on that in the email. And of course, you're selling your candle that has a different whatever it is, which would make your candle smell last longer. You will sell that in those platforms posts, right? So another example could be you own a hair salon and your idea might be something like, most people are damaging their natural hair without realizing it. Now, of course, we're going to make that idea travel. So Pinterest could be 5 mistakes that damage natural hair. And then, of course, you can have a checklist on that pin. Excuse me, sorry, y'all. Instagram could be a short reel explaining one mistake out of the 5. So that way then they'll click on like maybe a YouTube video you create or a podcast episode or a blog post, something like that. Or it could be, that checklist could be in the product description of whatever it is that you're selling. And you explain that one mistake and then they have to go to the product and read the description. And then, of course, you can send an email out to your list and tell them, have some kind of subject line about hair damage or whatever. And you can say something like, most hair damage isn't happening in the salon. It's happening at home. And now your content positions you as the expert, not just as someone who does hair, but you are now seen as an expert in making sure that natural hair stays healthy and not damaged when I leave your salon. And that naturally leads people to book with you, right? So the real lesson I'm trying to give y'all is content isn't about constantly creating. You know what I'm saying? It's about extracting value from your strong ideas that you have. And once you understand that, your content is going to become more strategic and you won't just be posting just to post. Because when you post just to post, you're not going to be successful because your content doesn't have a purpose or a job. And that's something that I've talked about in several different classes. Your content, when you post it, it needs to have a job. And I talk about that in the Facebook Live that I did. And I can't remember if I talked about it in the podcast episode or not. But I know for sure I talked about it in that Facebook Live that I just used as an example. But you also end up becoming more, like, not just strategic, but more consistent. Because now you're not thinking about new ideas. You're just expanding on the ones you already have. And that helps you create even more content faster. And it's a lot less exhausting, believe me, because when you're on so many platforms, it can be exhausting. So the next time you come up with a strong idea, I don't want you to rush past it. I want you to pause. I want you to sit with it. I want you to ask yourself don't even ask yourself. Like, just go in and ask ChatGPT, is this a strong idea? How far can this idea go? And then see what it says. Because if the idea is strong enough, it should be able to carry your content across your entire business. And when you start thinking that way, your content stops feeling like constant demand and it starts feeling like a system. And that's what you need in order to grow a strong business. You need a system. Okay? And of course, I do have many different things that you all could do in order to build a system. So if you're not aware, I do have something coming up that I am currently building. I've been building it for a while. It's almost done. It is something called the AI architecture method. And I am teaching you how to create your systems and your frameworks and all of that inside of ChatGPT. I'm teaching you how to architect it. I'm teaching you how to train it. I'm teaching you everything you need to know on how my ChatGPT works the way that it works and how you can get yours to work that way. And I have it right now where you can get this on a pre-order sale. So that way when it launches, not only will you already have access to it when I launch it, but you won't have to pay full price. So I would suggest that you take a look at that. If you are not interested in that, I do have something else that's coming up as well. I'm working on 3 things I'm working on 3 things at the same time. Which I don't recommend, but I got to do it. My other one is the Authority Content Collection. If you've taken my premium positioning method masterclass or intensive or whatever, then you already know what this is. But this comes from that. So if your messaging is strong, but you feel like your content isn't as strong as your messaging, and you also need to learn a content system, that's what this is. The Authority Content Collection helps you do all of that in one. However, again, if your messaging is weak, regardless of how great your products are, you're not going to be able to sell on social media. So I highly suggest you grab this little low ticket premium positioning method so you learn how to message properly. Messaging is part of branding. A lot of people don't think about that. So I would suggest heading over to my website, theiconicjay.com, figuring out which one works for you. But right now, I highly suggest you grab one of those two that I'm working on, because right now those prices are half off. And you can get two for the price of one, basically. Actually, you'll get, let's see. You'll get two for the price of one. So I would suggest you at least grab those. And then if you know that your message, you got to be honest with yourself. If you know that your messaging is not strong, you really do need that premium positioning method, because I'm not going to talk about messaging at all in the authority content collection. I'm going to be coming off of that intensive and going straight into the content part of it, so you can use them both, what you learned, in tandem, and create great content with great messaging and your branding on social media. Okay. All right. So the link is in my show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, obviously it'll be in the description box. And make sure you join me next week with another gem of advice, because I'm not going to leave no crumbs.